can't really make the mass of the moon much bigger than the mass of the Earth, because then the Earth would be orbiting the moon and not the other way around. So really the only thing that we're going to be allowed to play with in this equation is the mass of the Earth. So let's go ahead and figure out what the mass of the Earth would have to be to make the anime moon orbit that fast. Turns out you plug in all the numbers, and the Earth would have to weigh 1.33 times 10 to the 33 kilograms. Oh damn, we're back in scientific notation. Let's put this again in perspective. If you use the formula for surface gravity, basically how hard is gravity pulling on you, you can figure all this out. Plug in the numbers we just had, and it turns out that the anime gravity surface on their Earth is 2.2 times 10 to the 12 meters per second. In real life, it's about 10 meters per second. In other words, you are going to weigh 220 billion times as much.
Whoa! Yeah!
Jenny Craig is going to have a hell of a fail. That's what I think we can call busted. Alright, next up. This one goes back to Cowboy Bebop.
Smaller planet, more gravity.
Yeah. Just show you this one. This one comes from the episode Melodies of Venus. They're going to Venus, and one of the things that they're warned about is the possibility of allergic reactions to spores that are floating in the sky that were used to colonize Venus. So this, don't worry about the show, just look at the subtext right now, and then this is showing the actual spore colonies. This is what they basically stuck up in the atmosphere. It's changing the atmosphere to make it something that humans can breathe. Would this work?
What the hell were they thinking?
Hell no, what sort of idiot thought this up?
Yeah.
Who's old enough to know who this guy is? That's Carl Sagan. Very, very famous astronomer. He had a series called The Cosmos, where he basically popularized a lot of astronomy, and he is no idiot. Back in 1961, he published this paper called The Planet Venus, and in it he said, after physical environment has been thoroughly investigated, and if indeed Venus proves to be without life, there will exist the prospect of microbiological planetary engineering. He goes on to say, an organism is needed which can photosynthesize in the high atmosphere of Venus according to the symbolic equation carbon dioxide plus water plus light plus CH2O, or will produce CH2O plus O. So basically what he's doing is he's taking carbon dioxide, which is most of the atmosphere of Venus, and he's using it combined with water through some magical organism, and light, which it gets from the sun, and breaks it up into something like this, but gets free oxygen out of it. We want free oxygen. We like to breathe oxygen. It's kind of a nice thing. Once you get that, then the CH2O would be bound in the organism. It would fall down to the lower part of Venus where it would burn up because, hey, I didn't know if you know, but Venus is hot enough to bake cookies on the surface. So very hot, it would burn up. So the CH2O plus the heat would disintegrate it, breaking off the carbon, and then again liberating water, which goes back up and starts the cycle all over. So it'd be a really cool thing if we can do that. Small problem. Where's the hydrogen? I don't know if you guys have ever played with hydrogen before or even played with helium, but they're both really light. You take a balloon of hydrogen, it goes up. That means if you put hydrogen in Venus, it would float away. It does that to Earth. That's why we don't find hydrogen in the atmosphere of planets, because it floats away. So you're not going to get hydrogen to do this. So is this one going to work? No. Next up, Beck's Genshin. Again, major story arc here. This is second or third major story arc, and it's when he's fighting Shishio. It takes a while to get there, but Shishio's got kind of a cool sword.
The sword of Children. And I see it now. The secret behind Homerakama. The heat that's generated by friction is only meant to light the flame. Actually, it isn't the tip of the blade that you're setting on fire with friction. What's burning, the substance that's really burning, is human fat. Human fat.
Human fat? So basically, Shishio's kind of a bastard. He likes to kill people, and then he doesn't even clean his sword. Sure. See, he's got all this fat and human oils from killing people that's not washed off, so when he strikes it on the surface, it makes friction, which makes sparks, and that sparks lights the fat and stuff on fire, and so he gets this really cool flaming sword. Is this going to work? Yeah. Well, there's a couple problems. First off, fat is actually kind of hard to burn. you have to get it up to 550 to 600 degrees Fahrenheit for it to start decomposing in such a way that it's going to release enough heat to be a self-sustaining reaction. Aside from that, well, there's this other problem that, you know, when you're rubbing something along something, it's going to rub stuff off. It's going to take the fat off, and if you're taking it off, it sure well can't get heated up, so that's not going to work. Also, metal swords, metal conducts heat, so you're kind of removing the heat. All right, great. So let's bust out the equations of thermodynamics and screw this. I know how to use the equations, but I don't like to. Since it is Animemythbusters, let's test it. I don't think they like it if I brought in a steel sword and some fire, so I had to do this at home. I knew just first off it wasn't going to work, just with regular friction. I'm not Tishio, I'm not so badass, so I got some extra friction. This sword was covered in fat. Even with the grinder making lots and lots of friction, it didn't light on fire. In fact, it didn't even smell funny. You'll notice that it was making lots of sparks, and the sparks were carrying off most of the energy, so the sword didn't really get that hot. So obviously, that's not going to work. But this is Mythbusters. I had to make it work. So, I actually didn't really have anything else to do there, so I'm going to end there and ask if there's any questions.
Yeah, I got a question.
Hi.
What the hell do you think you're doing? This panel's called Animemythbusters. And what's the Mythbuster motto?
Don't try anything you're about to see at home, ever.
No, not that one, the other one.
I reject your reality and substitute my own.
No, not that one. If it's worth doing,
It's worth overdoing. So what are you going to do? We already did it with a lot of friction. It didn't work. It's not you're going to strike this on the ground and make it light like a match. Oh, God, I know that face. Did Mother tell you?
not to play matches.
Oh, holy smokes!
The main chemical is sulfide, which has a flash point of 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Cover the sort of fat and then glue that on. This should light it up. And here goes the tap. In this test, as I struck it against the ground, I didn't get so much as a spark. I suspect it was because the matches were rubbing off. I'm not done yet. There's only one way this can go.
Yeah, what's that?
Very nice sparks. However, these sparks were due to phosphorus as a sulfide of the matches and not actually due to the gasoline. The gasoline was too tenuous and evaporated too quickly to be of any use apparently. But just to be sure, I kept trying. Like the sparks.
I like science. I'm with
You can't do it with friction, lots of friction, match-head accelerated friction, and even match-head accelerated friction with gasoline. There's only one thing left to do.
that.
Cheat. What is I'm going to get commercially available gel with 63% ethyl alcohol by volume and attach that to the sword. Then I'll just light that with a match. Because after all,
Charmax.
we got it.
Yeah.
Sword.
I can't have a flaming sword. What do you want?
Charmax and fire is like the best thing in the world.
I have to remember that.
You have to put fat underneath that.
Alright, so I did finally get the flaming sword. I'm going to move on to the last segment real quickly. And this one is called dimensional analysis. Anybody heard of this before? Sounds sexy. What's it mean? What it means is it means pay attention to your damn units. I've heard that if you're really good at this, you can walk into an ACT, SAT, and blow away the physics portion without really having to know a whole bunch of the math or the equations, just because you can only put things together in a certain way to make it come out to be what you want. For example, you're traveling 30 kilometers an hour. If you travel for 30 minutes, how far will you have gone? You might know distance equals velocity times time. Obviously, the distance is measured in where your speed is measured in